Let us move on to our next technical session. To share knowledge in this session, we have an eminent speaker, Pradyumna Nag, as a chartered accountant. May I request our branch chairman to escort the speaker onto dais and also welcome him with a floral bouquet. Thanks, welcome the speaker. Thanks, Chairman. It is my pleasure to introduce the speaker to this August gathering. Pradyumna Nag is a chartered accountant by qualification and holds a postgraduate in International Business Strategy from IIFT, Delhi. He is currently the director of Pradyumna Nag, a management finance advisory which has been featured among the fastest growing private companies in India and written about for taking pragmatic approach to financial strategy by a few national publications. In the last 5 years, he has been in an advisory capacity for 20 plus raises and been part of 100 plus valuations and worked with 200 plus business models across 20 plus countries. During this time, he has also operated the strategic finance office in 15 plus companies ranging from telecommunication, infrastructure to enterprise SaaS to artificial intelligence. During his earlier stint at KPMG, he has worked with accounts such as Infosys, Mindtech, Levi's, Ariba, Philips, Akshaya Patra and was a part of APAC merger team for Schneider Electric. Helping in his passion for startup, he is also the founder of an accelerator called Red Paint. In its 5th year now, has worked with 32 concept stage startups, an area ranging from ideation to business modeling to fundraising. In his professional capacity, he has also been a co-opted member of the Committee on Public Affairs and Government Accounting of the Regional Council of ICI and a co-convener for PIOCCI, Chamber of Commerce and Industry for people of Indian origin across the world, and speaks in forums and universities on venture capital, corporate finance and international business strategy. In 2016, he chaired a state of PE industry and future outlook at the PE VC Summit in Bangalore. In 2017, he was a speaker at the Indonesia Economic Forum 2017 held in Jakarta, Indonesia. In 2018, he was a speaker at the Entrepreneur India Summit. His views and approach to valuation were published as part of the Professional Insights Literature of Evaluation Standards Board of ICI. With this brief introduction, I present CA Pradyumna Nag before you. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome him once again.
Hear a lot of things being said about you, especially on the stage, especially in front of chartered accountants. It's an honor to be here. First of all, I have to thank all of you because 4 or 5 days before the income tax deadline, you're making 60 minutes of your time to come and listen to a session about something that may not apply to you in day-to-day life, but still is of interest because it's so relevant today. The second thing, it's also an honor for me here because 15 years back, my father was the chairman here and he stood at the same stage, and this is the first time I'm getting to speak on the stage, so I would especially thank Shravan and B.T. Shetty sir for that. Apart from that, the most important thing about what I'm going to be saying is that there is no time before today that this is more relevant and more important than it is for our profession to support financing, funding, investment banking, because we as a community have always sort of shied away from these topics, always left it to management grads to come in and advise these companies, though it is something that we have extremely core focus, extremely core expertise in, right? So I think it's very important that we take the onus upon ourselves to be able to help these companies, sometimes fantastic companies with fantastic promoters with a fantastic idea, don't access the kind of capital that they should be accessing simply because there is nobody to advise them. So I guess it's more a matter of responsibility as well for us that we need to be taking this up as an opportunity. A few points of note before I begin. Most of the things that I'm going to be saying here are going to be very topical, are going to be very 30,000 foot level. These are based on the experiences that I've had in the industry. I have tried and ensured that most of what I say, I have had some kind of an exposure to. So there will be some things outside of this which you can always come up and educate me on off stage, and I'm a quick learner. I'll definitely take those points. Some of the traditional forms of financing or funding I'm going to skip completely, because I think we have already established that authority within ourselves to be able to advise or talk to promoters or talk to companies or talk to bankers on these matters. So in the interest of time, I would go ahead and skip those. Anything else, if you feel I have missed, I should include, please do let me know. There's a topic that's very near and dear to me, so I would be more than happy to absorb. Right, so let's look at what happened in the world of finance. So I think the suspense was already revealed by mistake a couple of seconds back. So typically funding or financing was done, right? Money that came as cash in the bank. There was no value to it beyond the amount of leverage that it gave you to go ahead and work on your vision, or to go ahead and set up that factory, or to go ahead and purchase those raw materials, or to go ahead and sign those contracts. Right? This was the value of money. Money came in, money went out, and you were very happy returning it to the bank. The bank said, hey, 10%, 12%, whatever that percentage was. But they did not absorb any risk beyond the repayment risk that was associated with that capital. Like, for example, if you were a business that had assets, you could access term lending. If you are a business which is building an asset, you could access term lending. If you have current assets, you have receivables, you have inventory, you can access working capital, right? So money always went to people who already had enough money, right, or who already have enough assets. But this was not what was required, right? So a lot of things changed. In the mid-2000s, there was a really, really big change which sort of happened. Now, switching back to where I was on what people thought were forms of finance, you had asset-backed financing, you had working capital financing, you had small savings and investment that you had already saved from your previous business, from your previous wherever you used to generate your income, and obviously wealthy friends and family, a wealthy uncle, a wealthy cousin. Somebody said, I'm ready to back you, and that was your source of capital. What happened in the mid-2000s was building a business was not about being careful or cautious anymore. It said, you need to build it quickly, you need to be fearless, you need to be intelligent, you need to go ahead and plant your flag where the market is available. Right? Now, why did this happen? Now, pre-2000s, that era was when somebody in the United States or somebody in the UK was a long distance call. It used to cost you 120 rupees. Today, in the click of a button, you can open your phone and you connect it to people across the world. Right? You work with them, you talk to them, you meet with them, you communicate with them, and in fact, many of them are very important customers and suppliers to you as well. Now, once this happens, right, when the whole world opens up and becomes a market that is open or available to you, something changes, right, which is trust. The biggest thing that changed was the global trust index of the whole world. How we trust an American, how an American trusts a British, how a British trusts a Japanese. All of that became very level, right? Which means that today I can do business with anybody in the world and I can still trust that I will get paid because I have employment, I have agreements, I have contracts, I have everything that is there to safeguard me or secure me to get my money back. And trust has a funny quality, right? Money always follows trust. You trust somebody, you're ready to get money, right? So, considering that, a large part of the business became about, is he the right person for me to lend money to or to provide financing to, rather than does he have the assets for it, right? Now this, again, is a very interesting point of inflection in the whole economy. Right? So I'll just take you back a couple of seconds. I'll take you back to a story which I found extremely interesting. I think it's extremely relevant. Right? So this talks about something that has no precedent. In 1957, 8 engineers, mostly Caltech, MIT graduates, got together and said, we want to build a semiconductor chip company. And everybody said, no, how can you do it? You need millions of dollars. It takes 5 to 7 years to really build a business. And you guys are sitting today with nothing other than the fact that you have these degrees and these years of experience, and you're saying that you want to start a semiconductor company. Now they looked across their professional networks and they got two guys who said, yeah, we are ready to be supporters, right? Venture capital didn't have a name at that point of time, that was supporters. Two supporters who said, I will lend you the money or I will give you the money. And you go ahead and build that. In 3 years, these guys got to an annual revenue run rate of about $20 million. In 7 years, they got to about $90 million. But that's not the most interesting thing, right? Most of the employees who were working in that company, right, the company's Fairchild Semiconductor, started to slowly leave and say that, hey, I want to build a chip company of my own. Now, the founders had two options. Go out, sue everybody, and say that, you've copied my design, you've copied my patent, you've copied my IP. Or the other one was, let's pass on what we got as trust to them. Right? So they started mentoring and investing in these tiny little employee-owned companies. And a couple of names that came out of there is AMD, Intel, and one more, Applied Materials, right? Some of the largest companies in the chip design space actually came out of one single company called Fairchild Semiconductor. Now, why this is important is it shows you how trust changed. Right? Earlier, you had all the bankers who were funding people who had a ship, who had to go out to sea, and then come back, catch the fish, and come back here. Right? Now you had people who said, I trust you as a business owner, and hence I'm going to put money into you. Now, Fairchild led to the creation of about 30 or 40 such companies. The founding group of Fairchild directly invested or mentored these companies, and together they came together and set something up which today is still a very, very, very hot topic, which I will come to a little bit later. Right? So what happened at that point, if I need to really summarize, one is birth of technology as a viable business. Right? Till today, everybody thought you make a car, that's a viable business. Right? You make something physical, tangible, that's a viable business. And the second thing was there are low barriers to entry other than scale. Right? Pump as much money as possible, build a massive factory, nobody can beat you on the costing, pricing, sourcing, hence you're going to stay there. The third thing was R&D as an asset category. Right? Till then, R&D was an expense. It started to seem like R&D has a long-term life, much beyond the balance sheet dates. Then something else happened, right? In the 2000s, something else happened, which is birth of the internet as a channel. You could reach anyone, anywhere, threshold limits and critical mass, right? That's a very important thing. So for example, will Flipkart survive if it has only 100,000 customers spread across the city, but it's selling products at a 200% margin? Right? No, because the cost of operating a logistics chain large enough to be able to serve 200,000 only makes sense at mass and volume. Now, same thing with the social network, right? If you have only 100 people on Facebook and you go in and you log in and you don't see anything from those 100 people, you're going to think this app does not work, right? Why do I need to be on this? You're going to uninstall it. Same thing with WhatsApp. If only 10 people within your network had WhatsApp, but not the remaining, maybe say 150, 180 people that you're in conversation with on a daily basis, what's the point? You're going to uninstall WhatsApp. So, threshold limit is that limit beyond which you can reach that kind of scale where your business becomes sustainable. Critical mass is at that point in which your business starts delivering the kind of value that it's built to deliver. Right? The third thing is, even the World Bank agrees with this, data is an asset class. Right? Soon we are going to start seeing the value of consumer data on our balance sheets. Just like it happened a few years back when Infosys recognized that human capital is an item that should really come up in our balance sheet. That's the same thing that's going to happen with data, because everybody today is playing with the value of data and trying to extrapolate what they can do with that data. So I have structured it into two sections. The first part is the non-equity part. The second part is the equity-led. Now, non-equity, your traditional forms of financing are always there: overdraft, cash advances, term loans, LC discounting, warehouse financing, debenture issues. These are things that we know day in and day out, we're very comfortable with, but I guess the agenda is to try to look at emerging opportunities. So I've just highlighted the ones that I will spend more time on, which is the equity grants, the community platforms, or balance sheet financing, which is very hot right now as a topic, which not a lot of people are using, but are very slowly being used by the companies around you without you realizing it. So let's start with the equity grants. Now, every time you solve a problem, there's always somebody who is saying that I'm going to support you to solve that problem. And especially when you solve a problem of national importance or global importance. Let's say water, right? I'm going to solve the water purity issue in the whole world. Now, there are organizations, philanthropic, sometimes they're called as impact investment funds, where they're not expecting a return over the next 5 years, but maybe over 25 years. But you're solving a problem that the whole world considers to be a problem. Right? So women's empowerment, poverty eradication, there are people who fund you money to be able to solve that problem because they know fundamentally you cannot access venture capital, right? At a stage and size. Now, a very classic example is one of the clients that I have worked with, two Harvard graduates who came together with a Cambridge graduate, and they started a company in India. They moved all the way from the US, they moved back to India. They started staying in a small town in Tamil Nadu and said that, we're going to solve the logistics problem. Right? The towns and the villages do not have access to logistics for anything. Forget about, Amazon or Flipkart or any of these companies. The bigger problem is, even if they have it, they're not interested to serve that population. Right? The second you type in that pin code, they're going to say it's not available. Now, the second thing, if I can leverage that same logistics channel that I built to pump innovations which really matter. For example, a solar light bulb, like a solar bulb that they put into a house or a fan. Now, these are towns where they have access to electricity 3 hours in a day, right? And all of it is during midday, not when the child is back at home and studying, right? And they give it midday intentionally because the consumption of the grid is very low. Now, if I give it to them in the evening, lights are going to run, TV is going to run, and they're not going to be, they're just going to draw more power out of it. If I give it to them in the morning, they're going to go and buy heaters and put it in the house, right? So I give it to them in the afternoon. Now, all these guys did is they started pumping an 800 rupee solar light, which would work for exactly 6 hours, right? No magic. It's a light that they had a PhD in sourcing. So they actually honestly had a PhD to identify these innovations and to be able to deliver them from a 3-year research that they did in Harvard on just this portion of it. And once they started doing this, you won't believe it. So the first time I had a conversation with them, I said, okay, why should we, work together? Right? I agree, I am from finance, but you guys are from the impact space. So I really doubt whether you'll be able to pay the kind of consulting fees that we ideally would want to charge. He said, no, think about this, right? He gave me one simple story. He said there is a barber in that town who operates his thing only during the day, right? But all the laborers get onto a truck and go in the morning and then come back in the evening. In the evening, who wants to get their hair cut in candlelight? Right? So his livelihood was limited to a meager 10-20 rupees a day, which is just enough for him to maintain his standard of living. But the second he put the solar light bulb in, he was able to service them at the time that they were comfortable. Right? Which in the evenings, once they come back, they said, yeah, I need to get a haircut, I need to get a shave. And immediately his whole lifestyle changed. Right? Now he has 2 barber shops in the same place. He's employed 4 people to run these barber shops. Now, how important is this as a product? It's just a tiny little solar light bulb that changed the lives of 4 people, right? But that's the power that an innovation can have. Now, these guys, as you could guess, attracted a lot of equity grant funding. They raised over $2 million over a period of 3 years, with people pumping in more and more money, telling them, go ahead. This is a vision that we want to support. They raised a venture capital round, I think about $3.5 or $4 million a couple of weeks back, again from an impact investment fund, who said, go ahead, build this vision. I think you can own logistics for tier 2 towns. So there are people, couple of the examples that are there. One is, of course, SIDBI. SIDBI does support, SIDBI does provide equity grants. You have the Gates Foundation, you have Michael Susan Dell Foundation, you have Ratan and Tata Trust, you have Unitas Impact Fund, and you have Omidyar Network. These are guys who are ready to give money if the problem is large enough to solve, to pilot things. They will not give you $20 million or $50 million, they'll give you the $1 million that you need to be able to showcase that it is valid. Now the second thing, again a little very, today it's a little controversial, but I'm sure regulations will open up, is community platforms like Indiegogo, Kickstarter. These are places where even before I have a product manufactured, I can go and say that, I will give you a right to purchase my product, like a pre-order. I will give you a right, if you are ready to give me the money today, it will come out in 9 months or 6 months. Now it reduces a lot of the pressure on the promoter when he sold $20,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 worth of product, even before he's gone out into the market. Right? So this is again growing to, in the US, a large number of companies that put out their products on Indiegogo and Kickstarter. I think there is about $4.5 billion that's been pledged on them for all these innovations. And it's fantastic because once it's done, you get the product home to you. You always have a risk that the product will never be delivered to you because the product could never reach market. But if it's a product which has a little impact in your own life, then it's worth taking that risk. The emerging one again is invoice financing and factoring. Now, it has been happening for a long time. A lot of large companies do access invoice financing from long back. Even we as professionals are very aware of it. But again, something new has happened. A lot of these platforms that have come in now study data, right? Earlier, they would look at CIBIL and they would look at the face value, they would look at your lending history, and then they would say whether you're qualified to access invoice financing or not. And the worst part is, let's assume you're doing business with small businesses, right, SMEs. They don't have a credit score. I know a Vodafone or an Airtel or a Colgate or an HUL are going to pay money, but I don't want to, help you discount an invoice which I'm not sure you're going to collect, right? So now all these platforms study your repayment history over a period of time by matching invoices using AI, and they say, okay, there is a risk of maybe 3 or 4% of collection, but the remaining 97% we can give them access to. It happens completely online and it's helping a lot of SMEs also enter into this space. They are a little expensive today compared to the other channels, but they are definitely accessible to anyone. Now, a couple of these examples, there is Capital Float which is doing it. Credx, I think, is one of the largest players in this space. Cashify, Indify. Now these are all companies that are popping up because the cost of invoice factoring is the same whether it's a large company or a small company in terms of onboarding a customer. But when you move everything to the internet, the cost of onboarding significantly reduces. So even if they're doing, let's say, 2 crores in turnover, they're still a good customer for me because I'm not spending 20,000 rupees of executive time to go and onboard them. The other portion of it, which is your typical off-balance sheet funding, is lease rental discounting, hire purchase agreements, and sale and leaseback transactions. Again, a number of real estate companies that have commercial development and commercial properties are moving to this because they're strapped on cash. They essentially sell back their asset to a leasing finance company and then access the cash flows. And when they receive the cash flows, they pay back the loan. Now, the cost of equity in real estate is about 27 to 30%. The cost of debt is about 18%, so I'm still making about 10 or 11%, so I'm still fine, right? So that's the logic behind this. Another very interesting thing, right? So every company that has some kind of deferred payment or has some kind of licensing fees or some kind of royalty fees or some kind of rental payments is going out and doing something which used to exist but used to exist with the really large private equity firms. What they're doing is they're packaging all of these assets together into a separate asset. So for example, let's say I have 10,000 TVs that I've sold, right? But the rental per TV is 200 rupees per day, right? Now in a month I have 200 into 36,000 rupees that I need to cover, but I need to spend 50,000 rupees today. They are packaging all of these loans and then selling it to a financial provider, right? So it could be an HNI or a group of HNIs, it could be a fund which is sitting on dry powder, or it could be even like ILFS or Dhanlakshmi Bank or any of these guys who say that, I'm ready, it's 15 to 18%, much better than my unsecured lending. Here there is an asset, but it's essentially unsecured. And since the rental yield that they are fetching as platforms could be closer to 22 or 23%, paying 18% will still mean that I'll make 5% net out of it, which is good. deal as a business without owning the asset, with having unlimited cash flows. I'm still able to generate 5% of every asset value that I lend. So this is another thing that has emerged. Even lending companies today, a lot of them are moving to this, where they're moving assets off the balance sheet, creating loan portfolios and selling it. Some other ideas or concepts of off-balance sheet funding that I have encountered: extended credit periods, right? So you can always talk to your suppliers, free up more cash flows. You can have payment schemes which are deferred beyond 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. A very interesting example: we were able to reduce a Series B company. We were able to reduce their cash flow requirement by $12 million by doing these negotiations on extended credit periods with an EMS manufacturer, right? It's very powerful. We just need to sit down for 1 hour or 2 hours and really get cracking on how we want this negotiation to work. Second thing is, in terms of somebody giving you a collateral, right, a secondary collateral. There are large companies, you are in the tech space, you work with the same customers. They say that, hey, I have a credit line of maybe say $5 million. You want $1 million out of it, use it. But give me the 2%. Right? Give me 2% to use that $1 million. And if you default, then anyway come back for your primary collateral. Right? Secondary is far away. So, sorry about that. So there's another way that companies are accessing funding. But again, some of this might not be exactly startup, very early startup. These might be a little more mature. But I guess, the word startup has to be redefined. There are companies that are doing $100 million of top line are also startups today. Now I'll move to the equity-led portion of the transaction. Right? I'll just expand on the previous example that I was giving you. Right? 1957, 30 companies came out. Now after those 30 companies came out, 2 of those guys out of the funding, not one of them out of the founding team, one of them was a senior executive, came out and set up 2 funds. Right? One of them is Sequoia Capital, and the other one is Kleiner Perkins. Now they went ahead and they said that, I need to continue this karma into a business. Right? I need to be able to invest this money into many other startups and companies. So they went ahead and raised money from outsiders, and they set up a fund. It was still called a venture firm. Right? At that time, there was no concept of a fund. It was still a partnership. It was an LLP. That's the reason that even today, a fund has a general partner, an operating partner, a managing partner, limited partner, because it comes from the LLP concept. Now, in the fund, they put money in. We got a few more external advisors. And the beauty of it is, you're talking about 30, 40 years from that day. But over $10.5 trillion has been added to the NASDAQ, just from the companies that this one company called Fairchild Semiconductor spawned. Right? So all these companies, if you trace back, they really go back to that one single instance of when somebody trusted somebody to put a few $100,000 into their company, and that's converted to $10.5 trillion. Now, a couple of examples or a couple of companies that they started that have their origins back to Fairchild: Apple, Google, Oracle, Facebook, Cisco, eBay, Yahoo, Tesla, Intuit, Twitter, LinkedIn, Symantec, Juniper, PayPal, WhatsApp, YouTube, Pixar, Instagram. I mean, there are easily 500 to 600 companies that they have funded, which are all companies that we have at some point of time encountered or used. Why this is important is to showcase one very simple point. Trust has a ripple effect, right? I trust somebody, put money into them. They trust somebody, put money into them. They trust somebody, put money into them. And that would be a $10.5 trillion game. Now, in equity-led investments, once trust came in, they said, I'm okay to be a partner with you, right? I don't want to be your financier. I want to be a partner. Now, how do I be a partner, or why should I be a partner? Now, this is a slide off the internet, because I think they've already done a very fabulous job. It showcases the stage that a business goes through and the kind of access to capital that it has. Now, if you come to the left portion of it, typically is where your co-founders invest money, right? They invest time. They don't necessarily put in their cash. They say, I'm working on an idea, I'm working on a concept, and then they start investing money, where the red line starts. Right? And then they go deeper and deeper. I'm investing in a product, I'm investing in technology, I'm investing in customer acquisition. But the major idea is, can I build a product and showcase it to the world, and the world will acknowledge and say there is a problem that you have solved for me. Now that's where your angels and your seed capital investors come in. They say, I believe in your vision, you are a good guy, I'm going to put in the money, show me it works. Now the first round of capital is where your series A, so you have your first round, second round, third round, mezzanine. Now your first round is where they say that, okay, you have initial proof that your customers are existing or are available at some place or are ready to pay a certain price. The second round is where you're on the uptick. Right? You're saying that at volume and scale, I'm going to be able to reach a lot higher, a lot faster. And third round, they say, okay, I figured everything out. It's not too risky anymore. And that's when you start saying that, okay, at this point of time, it does make sense for us to raise a large round of money or good amount of money to be able to capture the market. And as you move along, your business is now steady. It's going fine. You're not the person. It's not dependent on you as an individual. It's not dependent on one customer or 10 customers or 15 customers. But it can run like an operating cash generation machine. Is when you go for an IPO. Right? At an IPO, you access capital, but you invest that capital to grow your markets. I right now have conquered India as a market. I'm going to take this to Malaysia. I'm going to take this to Singapore, or I'm going to take this to US. Wherever you want to go. At an IPO stage, every dollar comes back as 30 paise. Sorry, every rupee comes back as 30 paise. Right? That has to be the logic of thinking when you reach an IPO. Beyond that, there are people who will come in, financial institutions who will want to reinvest the capital that they have, where they're expecting a 12% margin, 14% margin, like your Nifty stocks. So generally, what is the kind of risk that they cover? Right? Let's start with the real part. On a foreign currency debt, like foreign currency term loan, what they're trying to cover or ensure that is covered is the fact that the fluctuation in foreign currency should not affect me significantly or in a bad manner. Right? So that's the reason that the rate of interest on foreign currency borrowing is a lot lower. As you move up, there's a repayment risk. Right? You borrow money on a secured basis, but you never know what's going to happen. You don't know whether the guy is going to default. So you have a slightly higher percentage. Right? Somewhere between 7.5%, 8% for a really good borrower to somewhere around 11.5%, 12% to somebody who has poorer credit, like let's say a services company which does not have assets to back it. Then you move one level up. I don't have assets to back it. Hence, I have unsecured debt. There is a credit risk. I might lose the entire amount of money that I have lent him. So it's a little costlier. One level up, I have venture debt. When I'm playing a quasi-equity partner role, right? I might have some equity stake as well, but purely it is debt where I'm taking a risk that this guy might not pay at all, or this guy might not run the company well at all. Then you have your private equity. Your private equity comes in with like maybe 18%. Your large private equity at pipe stage deals come in at about 18% to 25 to 30%. Now there the business is already established. It's a little less riskier than at venture capital because at venture you lose everything. And then your venture capital which says that I want 25 to 30%, I need an IRR, I need these rights, because they're trying to safeguard that you're not going to mess up on execution. Right? And at the same time, you have a great idea, but I don't know whether your customers are going to like it at scale. The last one is your angel and seed round. The most expensive, though we say friends and family, they really cost the most in terms of equity because they come at a very, very early stage, and by the time they exit, you would have paid a lion's share of all the money that you have just to keep them happy. At an angel stage, there's still a lot of uncertainty. He's an external person who's evaluating you as a company. He needs to be returned a lot more than a venture capital because he's taking you through that journey. Many of the times they come in with connections, relationships, and that's what you want to tap as well. So you could be looking at about 30% upwards for an angel or seed round, and friends and family round, it could go to anything, right? 100%, 200%, 300%, because the time that they're coming in is very important or crucial for you as a business. Now, my take on some of the things that are sort of happening. So we use a platform called CB Insights. Usually when we study or advise companies on who to raise from, how much to raise, we use platform data to be able to provide us information about trends. So I just wanted to showcase the last 3 years to you in terms of deals. I just made a note of a couple of things that we need to see from the slide. Everything else is purely information or data. One is 65% of all deals happening today are still seed or angel. There are companies that are coming in very early, but a large part of these deals are being invested around the software space. Now, many people, have, whenever I mention this, they come up and say, why is it always software? Why can't they invest in a hotel chain? Why can't they invest in that, this? But you also have to realize where these angel investors are coming from. They're all coming from newfound wealth, right? They're all coming from companies where they made stock option money. They're all coming from companies that got sold or from which they exited. Their tendency will be to play in a domain which is comfortable to them, and hence software still takes a big chunk of it. Another very important point is still a lot of deals that are happening, about 64% of deals are internet and mobile. Now, the reason for that is venture capital fits very beautifully with these two markets, because the incremental cost of servicing a customer is very low compared to the incremental revenue that it can generate. Because at some point of time, your costs plateau, but your revenue can grow exponentially. The third point, green tech is on the upswing. So anybody who is, let's say, on the water treatment side, the sewage or waste management side, is on the renewable energy side, is on the electric vehicle side, they are seeing a lot more interest, because everybody is realizing that today oil might run out. It's only a matter of chasing that day when oil is going to run out, and we are going to go to these companies at that point of time, and you'd rather invest in them and take ownership of that growth rather than sit on the sidelines and hope that everything else happens. The last one is on the Series A side. An interesting trend is that it's moving beyond tech, right? So I know a company which raised a very good, very healthy Series A round, which has nothing to do with tech, but it's purely an apparel brand, right? Where they've created a brand which appeals to the athleisure community that does not exist in India. In India, it's either formal wear or casual wear, right? You don't have clothes that you can wear to the gym and wear to your office. So the new market that they have opened could be potentially billions of dollars once it picks up. In the US, in the UK, in France, in Germany, they together must be at least $100 or $150 billion market, out of which there are only 5 or 6 players that are conquering that space right now. Now, at what stage does what kind of money come in? So I have a great idea. I want to put it across. It's going to be innovative. It's going to disrupt the industry. You go to your friends and family. All you need is a pitch deck or an example or an ideation. So the portion on the right is the resources that you need when approaching any of these players. What will they typically fund is next, because we can't go to a Series A investor and say, fund my idea. Right? They're going to say, I need an MVP, I need a working product that showcases that you can solve the problem. There are exceptions to these rules, of course. There is a company that has raised a Series A without a product in hand, right? Purely on concept, because something that they were working with is so important and so critical that it can change the whole way the business functions. Second one, so the boxes in blue identify what they're funding you for. Right? So the second one, okay, I've assembled my team, I've got these people on board. You raise your angel round and say that, no, I'm going to find my product. I'm going to discover what it is my product wants, what it is my market wants, and I'm going to build the product in a way that the market wants it. Third one is when you go to your venture capital, your Series A, sometimes pre-Series A. Now it's moving towards the pre-Series A side. I know where my customers are. I know how much they're willing to pay. I just need to be able to take the product and keep it in front of them. Right? So this is your typical Series A kind of story. Now, once they have started using the product, they really love my product. Right? So in the Silicon Valley, phrase that they often use for evaluating a company is, does your customer love your product? Not like your product, use your product, does he love your product? Is he so engaged that every day when he wakes up, he wants to come into your app and then see what's happening? Right? So if you see the best companies in the world, they associate themselves with an activity. Right? I wake up in the morning and then I open Facebook because I want to connect with my friends. I wake up in the morning and then I see WhatsApp because I want to talk to somebody. I wake up in the morning and then there's something, my wife tells me that you need to buy this for me. I open Amazon, right? So everything connects with an activity that I have. Like I want to travel, it's Uber or Ola, right? The second you link yourself with an activity, you occupy that mind share. And when you occupy that mind share, as long as you keep your product good enough, you're going to be able to attract a lot of interest from the venture capital side. Now, that also establishes the key parameters based on which your valuations are built at a Series B, C, D, E round. For example, I have a company that raised money purely on the number of times the app was opened. Like I said, forget about users. Getting users is the secondary problem. But I can show you how sticky my product is. The second they install it, they come in and then use it. So one of the greatest examples of this is, maybe it is for a younger audience, but Tinder, right? On Tinder, people who install it, open it 4 times a day. You don't even open Facebook 4 times a day. So when Tinder got valued for an acquisition by Match.com, it got valued at an astronomical number, though the user base was really small, because they said everybody who installs it opens it 4 times a day. That's what you want. And then they said tomorrow, I don't know what the revenue is today, but maybe tomorrow I'm going to send a product placement ad, right? For example, for those who don't know Tinder, what Tinder is, it's a dating app. Right? When you swipe, you swipe one way and it says I'm not interested in that person. You swipe the other way and it says yes, I'm interested in that person. And if they swipe again, like both of you say that you're interested, then it matches you up. Now, they say that, I don't know, tomorrow maybe I'm going to introduce a product here. Right? I'm going to say, do you like Coke? Right? They say, yes, I like Coke. Then, do you like Pepsi? Okay, no, I don't like Pepsi, or I like Pepsi. And they're going to relate that information back, saying that a person who likes Coke also likes all of these other things. So if I want to acquire a customer, or I want to create a marketing campaign, I build a marketing campaign for people who like all of this. Right? Why? Because I don't know whether this guy is going to like Coke or Pepsi or not. So now Tinder got valued astronomically because of the kind of open rate that they had. Now that establishes the valuation. That's the reason that the valuation of WhatsApp was also that high. There is a logical basis in my mind, but I'm not sure, because till the time that they really, Facebook really says that that's the reason we paid that much money to it, which I can probably share with you at the end. The next one is now my business has reached a certain scale, but I need to reach these thresholds, that critical mass, 100,000 users, 500,000 users, 1 million users. Now that's when you go and raise a Series C, D, E round, saying that my model works fine, my revenue is fine, my customer relationship value is fine, I just need to market more, get more customers in, and then keep them on the platform. Once I've done with all of this, then I go to private equity at the stage that says that the next step is go to these 10 markets and like carpet bomb the place with my product. That's when you go to private equity or an IPO. So another key trend that has also happened. Unfortunately, a lot of chartered accountants have not jumped onto this bandwagon, but I think it's a matter of time. Is the SME IPO. Companies that have, I think, more than 1 crore in paid-up capital, but less than 25 crores can access public capital markets, raise the amount of money that they need. But I think 25% is the minimum amount that they can release. So compared to your typical forms of financing where you can take only what you need, you have to still go out and raise more money, even though you might not need it in this. So that might lead to a lot of dry powder within the company itself, where you don't know what to do to invest the money. Couple of issues when it comes to the SME IPO stage is the amount of liquidity that is currently there in the SME IPO stage is very poor. So you need to get a really good merchant banker who will support you and say that I'm going to get your underwriting done. The other thing is also the fact that once the money has already sort of hit your account, for your promoters to be able to cash out, there is not enough liquidity in the capital markets yet. But for companies that are doing it, it's a great thing, because in 3 years it's going to have an explosion, and many of the companies which are listed as SME IPO are going to move to the main board, where the credibility completely changes and they get access to the really large financial institutions. So again, a very controversial topic. Now the reason I have included it is this, though we say it's legal, illegal, regulated, unregulated, this is the way that companies are raising money outside of India. Right? And at some point of time, regulatory environment is going to move to support it. Now, it's starting to become associated with a bad word, right? Which is imprisonment, jail. All of these words are sort of coming in the second you say cryptocurrency. Right? Now, that's actually right now for the stage at which India is, it might have been a good thing to regulate this market because the amount of forex draw that it would have to buy forex currency, if we were freely allowed to buy it, the dollar could reach 100 rupees. And you don't want that. You can't import anything anymore. It's going to have a ripple effect on the rest of the world because it's going to make daily things. Your cell phone is going to be a lot more expensive. But this is a very important aspect because it's another form of currency that has arisen, crypto as a currency. And it's a very intelligent way of raising money. It has its own perils. The perils are there is no body to regulate it. Once you put in the money, he could take the money and holiday in Mauritius and you can do nothing about it. Right? But at the same time, the good thing is anybody anywhere in the world can invest into you. Earlier, it was your Indian counterparts, your financial institutions, your HNIs, your angel investors who would want to put money. Here, it could be somebody like a plumber who's sitting out of his home in, let's say, Atlanta, Georgia. And he says, this is a good business, I like it, it's interesting. I'm ready to put $5,000. As you accumulate all of these $5,000 together, it could be a large sum of money that you will have access to. Typically, ICOs are a very key aspect is they're going to launch some kind of a token. Right? A token is like a share. A share which one either gives you an access to use them as a platform or a product. So, for example, let's say I have a website. Now, the website provides 20% discount on all basic necessities. But to access it, you need to pay. Right? So typically, since I'm, let's say I'm a group buying a website, then 20% to enter, if I need to pay $2,000, that's a cost of entry for me. But this allows me to keep that license forever. So that's a utility token. A share of a business, I'm going to collect money from all these customers, I'm going to collect licensing revenue, I'm going to collect profits. So my shares I'm going to issue again as a token. Or it could be a payment token, like your Bitcoin is a payment token, your Ether is a payment token. These are forms of currency that exist. Or it could be a hybrid token. It could be a mix and match of any of these. So a share and the right to use could be clubbed together. Now they keep only they release maybe say a billion of these tokens into the market, right? Because they don't want it to be a never-ending process. They want the shareholders to also be able to get value out of it. So they put a limited number of them in it, and as people circulate that share or that thing amongst each other, the value of it slowly grows. So a capital investor can cash out over a period of time as more number of people use the product or platform. Just like the way it happens in venture capital, the more number of users, the more your valuation is, hence the value of your share is more. Similar to that is a token. A lot of governments have introduced a lot of regulations around it. So for example, we were working with a company that's going for ICO that's filing in Singapore. Now, when they're actually based out of the US, now when they're filing in Singapore, one of the requirements that the Singapore government has is the person who is advising you to invest, right, cannot provide you with the option of more than one investment option. Which is very interesting because what it means is that if he comes to you and sits with you and talks about this ICO, he cannot talk about any other ICO because they want a relationship between the promoter and the person who is marketing the IPO to be a principal-to-principal relationship. They want them to know them. They don't want large agencies to go out there and flood the market with their instruments and then have somebody else suffer. Second thing is you have to be an accredited investor to actually want to invest into the crypto market. So even if there's an initial coin offering, you need to make a declaration, you need to tell the world that you are qualified to invest. Many governments also have banned crypto, China being one, because it heavily weakens the yuan compared to the US dollar. It's in their best interest to do it. Otherwise, the imports into US are going to fetch a lot less. Right? The only problem right now is to enter the market. The gateways all accept only US dollars. So even if you have Singaporean dollars, you convert it to US dollars and then you buy the crypto. So that's the big problem. The last one is your strategic investments and MBOs. In my view, over the next 5 years, 60 to 70% of all deals, at least in the technology space, at least in Bangalore, are going to be strategic investments or MBOs or LBOs. The reason being that at this point of time, unless and until they consolidate together and start to show their power as one unit, they're going to start getting wiped off, because there are a lot of new technologies which have come in the US, in Europe, which are going to kill these markets. So a very simple example, AI in customer support. Right? Most of the time, the first few conversations that you have with your customer support is actually AI responding to you, saying, hey, what is your problem? Now that is a couple of hours less, right? Which means my operator or my support executive is used for those many hours less. India has finally built itself on that economy of hours is equal to cash, which we should not have done. We should have said value is equal to cash. When you say hours are equal to cash and something like AI comes in and says that I'm going to reduce the number of hours, it's not good for an economy, especially where hours are cash. Hence, this is going to have a very long impact unless and until we are able to consolidate together. You have biggies like Infosys, Wipro saying that we are also going to enter into that space. We are going to create shareholder value. We are going to create market value. We are going to upskill the teams on AI thinking or design thinking or critical thinking. So, the strategic investment side, larger companies sees that you have cracked a nut, you have cracked something very essential or something very critical, which they may not have. And rather than create it, because if I am a large company, it's going to cost me $10 billion to say that I'm going to create the next Uber, right? Because Uber's already there, it's already created the market. But if, let's say, Uber was available at $8 billion, I'd rather buy it, right? I'm saying $2 billion. So strategic investments will significantly reduce the cost to create and also provide the entrepreneurs with the kind of infusion and zeal that they already want. So if they say, you be an entrepreneur, you're great, you're building good business, I'm going to put money into you, but I want 25% or 30% or 50%, whatever that number is, to support you on your vision. I might have access to your customers, I will give you access to the customers, right? But you give me equity, we both are partners. So this is another advantage. The bad is, let's say Infosys comes in and says, I'm going to invest in Zoho. And Infosys says it's a great business. Zoho has continuing license revenue, but you can't work with any customer that has SAP. Let's assume, right? Because I have very strong ties with Oracle. Now, what is that entrepreneur going to do? Is he suddenly going to say, no, I'm not going to service a customer? Just because of the simple fact that your partner, strategic partner, cannot do business with somebody, you will be precluded from doing business with them, right? So for example, let's assume that you want to do some business with a government, right? Let's say government of Iran. Now for India, diplomatic ties, India and Iran may not get along very, very well, right? Because the US is going to say, hey, how can you do business with Iran? Now, I have a company that heavily does work for Iran government. Now, the second that does work with the Iran government. Now, the second I tie up with this large multinational whose clients are sitting out of the US, where a huge amount of lobbying power is being spent between you to ensure that they have access to a market. And they say that, how can you do business, right? Your investee is doing business with Iran. I don't want to support Iran's business, right? So those are the kind of situations that could come up. It could be very small with working with certain sectors and companies. It could be very large as well. The other thing is lower flexibility on operations. They're going to be very involved. Paytm invests money into a company. They are going to have Paytm's agenda also being serviced out of your company's future, which means you as a promoter lack certain things, certain flexibility that you would want in the operations. The other big question, right? So now this brings us to sort of a conclusion, but there are a couple of things that people continuously ask me. So before you guys go ahead and ask me, or before you think, and you might have asked another person. I just thought I'll sort of try and address it. The first one is venture capital is declining, not a good time to raise money. Second one, a good idea is good enough to raise venture capital. Third one, VCs typically follow a herd mentality. They don't take chance on innovators, they want to invest in copycats. Phrase number 4, iBankers are basically just connectors to funds. Phrase number 5, valuations are unintelligible and devoid of logic. Like somebody says it's $80 billion, that's ridiculous. $80 billion, it's ridiculous. The last one is VCs and PEs only like technology businesses. The truth of the matter is none of them really are true. But they're not true in whole. Right? So, for example, venture capital is declining and it's not a good time to raise money. It's always a good time to raise money. There are more number of investors that have come in this year than the last year and every year. The total amount of deal volume, let's say the number of deals, that is likely to reduce. Because what happened earlier is a lot of businesses were built, like for example, let's say Flipkart, right? E-commerce as an industry, was built by somebody who saw an opportunity, and the way Amazon was seizing that opportunity. Sachin and Vinny Bansal actually worked in Amazon. They said this is a great technology, India is a great market, we need to come in here. And when they did that, there was a lot of push or impetus from the venture capital side saying that, hey, you're building a business for India, let's invest money, right? But over a period of time, a number of those businesses have declined, right? Somebody creating a extremely new technology has declined because the internet happened only once. All these are offshoots of the internet. Now whatever is happening is using the power of the internet to create more new companies and new concepts out of it. So the number of deals will obviously become more mature because they know that this has not worked in the US, I will not invest in that here, because fundamentally at scale that fails logic. Second, a good idea is enough. I think the most important thing is a good team. Like many of them falter when it comes to picking or choosing a team. I've seen many deals that have not gone through just because it was a one-man founded company. So they were always worried that if it's not him, if he's not able, maybe he's a great entrepreneur to build it up to this stage, but he's not able to take it to the next stage. Right? That's where a co-founder really helps. Third thing, they follow a herd mentality. Yes and no. They obviously follow some kind of a herd mentality because they all chase after the new technologies that are there. And US being one large market where new technologies are being on every day, they get wind of something new that's happening. They know it's worth there. Companies are going to IPO. Obviously, like any other investor, they also want to do that. They're not in the charity business. They want to take the safest bets. iBankers are basically connectors. Well, basically the role of an iBanker between India and between US or Europe or anywhere in the world is very different. iBankers play a very strategic role, become very involved in the operations. They say, okay, these are the metrics that we need to reach. Let's work on it together. Okay, what are the problems that you're facing, right? Which compared to in India, because of the sheer size and volume of the entrepreneurial industry and the shortage of iBankers, is being reduced to too many deals for too few people and hence over diluted to just connecting. Valuations are unintelligible, like the previous speaker also mentioned, right? It's relative value to you and relative value to me, right? So I might say my company is worth $100 million, but you might say that's nonsense. I'm not going to pay more than $10 million. But together you say, okay, $50 million. For a third party who's sitting completely on the outside, $50 million seems ridiculous, right? But between both of us, we actually know what the real value is. Now this $18 billion was paid for WhatsApp. A very interesting thing. So I believe that the real fundamental reason for the value behind WhatsApp is Facebook could not crack one thing. It could not crack who you want to be in touch with, right? It could crack everything else, your friends, your circles, whether you want to be connected to them or not. But I want to crack whether you're interested in reading their post or not, right? So Facebook acquired WhatsApp because WhatsApp did that. WhatsApp is one-to-one communication. I know by accessing an address book whether this person is interested in this person's life or not. Right? You're more likely to be interested in a person that you have access to on a daily basis. Now I have a $100 billion company. I'll pay $18 billion to solve my single biggest problem. It's worth it. Right? Today, if I don't do that, Yahoo is going to say, I want to start a new thing. Or Google is going to say, I am the first person who will give you contextually the people that you need to be in touch with. or that you want to be in touch with. They can't allow that. $18 billion seems too small a price. It's too big a number, but it's too small a price for really justifying the 100 billion market cap that you're maintaining in the on the Nasdaq. The last one is they only like technology businesses. This has slowly changed. Over a period of time, they have evolved. A lot of companies, a lot of VC firms have been investing in non-tech businesses. So simple example like Vasudeva Digas had raised a large round of capital from New Silk Road Ventures. The other company that I mentioned to you, which was in the apparel space, also raised a large amount. But again, they're trying to use technology to some extent because the founders come from a technology background. So they're trying to use technology to solve some part of the business. Right, so I'm almost done. Just one thing that one of my very early teachers was Chandrasekhar Shetty used to ask me. So he said, at the outcome of any class, there can only be two things. Right? You can either be convinced or you can be confused. Right? So his answer to it was always, attend the first class. Right? Which is what I'm going to be leaving you guys with. If there are any questions that you have, please feel free to ask me. From my limited knowledge and try and address them to the extent possible. I think there's more confusion. No? Lastly, I'd like to thank the CA Institute. I think they really took a chance with me. So I hope I've done justice to you guys. And for the hour, so that's almost like 50 hours that we spent. There's one question you wanted to take it out. You're all done. One question.
Please. Yeah. Why always when the investors come, the convertibles are offered? So why not villagers or why not other paper estates? So what is the benefit of it?
See
how the founders, you think how the founders should go ahead with the convertibles or the debentures?
Right. So, see the kind of stage that they're coming in, they are taking certain amount of the equity risk. Like equity risk is risk of being your partner. Right? Why should I be your partner and not the person sitting right next to you? Now, that risk needs to be covered in some form or the other. And for a typical debt-based deal, let's say debentures, I'm still taking an equity risk, right? To some extent at a venture stage. But for a large company, a debenture is very trustworthy. For example, TTK, Prestige TTK, they raised a large debenture round, right? But they raised it because I have so many assets sitting on my balance sheet that if anything goes wrong, I'm just going to sell a factory and repay your money. But here I have nothing, right? So I'm still taking a chance on you. Hence, they prefer to have a convertible rather than a but that's also sort of changing with venture debt coming in. Sometimes they don't want to take convertible, sometimes they want to take convertible.
No, actually, are there any companies or firms, management firms, who are linking up with these angel investors?
Right. So one of the very interesting, whenever we work with very small deals or transaction sizes where we've done the advisory. Now we don't want to associate essentially on the HNI space because one, it's not valuable for our time. But there are platforms, right? For example, one very big platform is Let's Venture. It's slightly expensive. You pay about 3 plus 2%. You pay about 5%, but you get access to a huge number of investors. There's another angel investment network which also is slowly growing. These platforms do give you access to it, and it's not you can always invite somebody to come and look at your thing, but you can't see their contact information, so it's completely anonymous. But these platforms do exist. I think for angel investors, I've seen the most success with these platforms.
Once a company is past the seed capital stage and an investor comes in, is royalty still viewed as a very high cost or dilution of value?
Yeah, so what happens with royalty is a huge amount of the free cash flow gets passed back out of the balance sheet, right? It moves out completely out. Now, if I'm making, let's say, 25% or 30% net margin, and 10% of it moves out as royalty, my enterprise value is reduced by that 10%. Right? It's actually 30% of my net profit. So it becomes an extremely expensive affair from an enterprise value standpoint. So royalty is not looked at in a nice way only for that reason. But it's very common to pay royalty. So And I'm sure Ola, Uber, all of them have some kind of a royalty agreement with Google Maps. But maybe they use it as a license fee. I don't know. Okay, if that's it. Then thank you all. Thank you for your work.
Friends, we had an excellent session on various methods of fundraising, and the speaker answered all your queries also. Hope you enriched your knowledge on the topic. Let us thank the speaker for his valuable time and knowledge sharing with us. It is time to present a memento to the speaker as a token of appreciation and gratitude. Chairman to come forward and do the honor. Friends, thank the speaker once again. Thank you, Chairman.